Welcome to BIV Today, the daily podcast from the newsroom of business in Vancouver. I'm Kirk LaPointe, publisher and editor-in-chief. It is some distance from New Orleans to Vancouver, some distinction in the cities and some of their priorities. But when it came time to succeed Charles Gauthier, who had steered the Downtown Vancouver Business Improvement Association for 3 decades, the organization turned to Nolan Marshall III, who had held an executive role with the Business Alliance in the Big Easy, to come here. He assumed the role in June. It's our first opportunity today to talk to him about what he's learning, what his priorities are. And Nolan, thanks a lot. Thanks for the generosity in providing some time today.
Really happy to join you. Looking forward to the conversation.
Well, tell me how you were looking forward to Vancouver and what it is that you've initially learned and maybe what surprised you.
Vancouver is a really great city. It's a one-in-a-kind destination, an easy city to choose. And so I've often been asked, how did a guy from New Orleans choose Vancouver? And for all the reasons that everyone celebrates Vancouver, its location, its economy, its people. And so it really is a great opportunity for me and a great organization. And it's a challenging time. All downtowns across North America and across the world have been going through this pandemic together over the last 18 months. And so taking on that challenge at a time and succeeding Charles in this role really was intriguing and exciting.
Did you feel in arriving that the pandemic might be inhibiting your actual understanding of the city, that it was, in a way, it was distorting what Vancouver's about?
Sure. So I've been told you haven't seen anything yet. And it's because when I arrived in Vancouver and arriving from North America, many of my colleagues in North America, the downtowns, are experiencing really the worst of times and the worst of days. Restaurants closing up, retail boarding up, no one working in those office towers that were built to support really the ecosystem of downtown. Travel shut down essentially in North America. And my first day walking into the office in downtown Vancouver, I walked through what felt like a vibrant and bustling downtown. It had the same rhythms and beats of downtowns that we're used to, people walking to work, people sitting outside of coffee shops. And so there is a vibrancy that has started to return to downtown Vancouver at this point that hasn't returned to North American downtowns, other North American downtowns. But what I've been told is you haven't seen anything yet. Wait until the cruise ships start rolling in. Wait until everyone starts returning to work. Then you'll really see downtown Vancouver at its best. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that this fall. We expect people to return in full force in the fall.
I've been to New Orleans a couple of times, and I wonder what you've so far noticed in the way of parallels.
It's interesting. Both cities are big port cities that rely on tourism and hospitality from. Both cities, obviously, with being big port cities, are surrounded by water. New Orleans might as well be an island, for better or worse, with a large lake on one side and the mighty Mississippi River to the other side of the Gulf of Mexico on the other side. The differences that I've noticed is that New Orleans is more of a sports and big events town. Mm-hmm. And so in some of my introductory conversations and our work at the DVBIA to launch the Granville Street Promenade, there's a different culture in Vancouver around the street festivals, street parties, special events, large sporting events. And it's something in New Orleans that it's an expectation. There's something going on, something that attracts people from the region, from surrounding states, from across the world, nearly every weekend. It's got its name, the Big Easy, as a big host and party city for a reason. So that's one distinction that I've learned in these early days, that it's a bit harder to throw a big public gathering, a big party, a destination type event in downtown Vancouver.
Again, you haven't been here when we've had hockey, but hockey isn't really. It's not like tailgating for the New Orleans Saints or going to a Pelicans game, right? It is very, very different. You speak of that outdoor life, and I think that is still one of the things that Vancouver hasn't quite figured out, is the outdoor life. So the Granville Promenade being a good example of this. So is it fair to say it's an early priority of yours to start to figure out even how to develop this?
Sure. So we do, and we do this in New Orleans, and we see this in other North American cities and cities around the world. The reason for having these outdoor gatherings, the reason for being able to host these street festivals and parties and large events, isn't so much just because we love a good time, which we do. It's because it's good business for those retailers, those restaurants that are in those neighborhoods that service sort of the destination. It's good business for the local economy and for the local government. We can host 18 million visitors as we do every year in New Orleans. When we can do that and it's consistent and we can count on that business. And so it's a priority, not because I'm the guy from New Orleans who loves good music and loves a good party. It's a priority because as part of the ecosystem of downtown, we need office workers. We need those residents who live in downtown Vancouver and on the peninsula. We need tourists and visitors, and we need them consistent. We need to enrich and encourage that ecosystem to grow, and sports and events and street festivals are a way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, New Orleans, of course, has its share of inequity. I wonder what your experiences so far and your impressions so far are of the evident inequity that you see in the downtown east side.
Sure. When my wife and I, we quarantined when we first got here. We drove 8 days across the country from New Orleans to Vancouver with a 5-year-old and 2-year-old and a miniature schnauzer. It was quite the adventure. I may write about it one day. And we quarantined for 14 days, Burnaby, before we actually went to Vancouver. And the first place that we went was to see a rental unit, place to live, that was in Railtown. And the owner of the building sent me a whole bunch of information about the downtown east side. And I told him, look, I'm a guy from New Orleans. I get it. The poverty rate in New Orleans is quite high. Living around 4 people doesn't have to be, it's sort of the expectation. We live in diverse neighborhoods in many North American cities. But when I arrived at the corner of Hastings and Main, it was something I haven't seen before. And it was the first thing when I left quarantine. My first sort of welcome to Vancouver was the corner of Hastings. And so we've, it's an adjacent neighborhood to downtown Vancouver. Some of the social issues that exist there, we see them starting to emerge throughout the rest of the peninsula as well. And so there are social interventions that are important, that have to take place. One, because it's important for our area, but also it's important that we make sure that we are helping those people in the correct way. When I was working for the Downtown Development District in New Orleans, we were one of the earlier supporters of permanent supportive housing to support the community. And it's, when done correctly, through supports in place, not just a roof over someone's head, it really is powerful and it's meaningful for those people.
Do you feel that a role like this will carry with it some, not just some operational expectations among the business community, but almost political considerations for you as a leader now of a very large group, a very concentric group of what constitutes our retail community here?
Sure. I think whenever you assume a role like this in a community, you become a leader in the community. And so one of the things that I've always done in my past is try to figure out how I can build meaningful partnerships that benefit the organization or that benefit the community as a whole, because I'm a member of this community now. And so to sort of tie the retail aspect into what we're talking about on the east side and some of those social issues. Part of the experience that I've had in the past is working to get people employed who are returning home from incarceration. And one of the things that we found that retailers, especially start not national chains, but homegrown retailers, were more likely to hire those formerly incarcerated residents. And so I mentioned that because if we can grow a vibrant retail corridor on Granville in other parts of the city with homegrown businesses, those are the businesses that are likely to hire the residents who've gone through some difficulty. That sort of transformation is important. So I see myself in this role, someone who can lead in creating those to do just that, not just retail for the sake of value, but it's what does that retail mean for the people who work there? What does that mean for the community at large? So I hope that sort of answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And what I also wonder about is, I mean, we obviously still have a great deal of vacancy in the downtown. We have a number of people who haven't returned to their offices and all that. Do you have some ideas in the early going about what's going to be the best way to get ourselves back?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing that we've always done as downtown leaders. It's creative placemaking. It's making sure that when people come back downtown for the first time, they've been working remotely, maybe they've gotten used to working from home, but there's something that they miss about downtown. We have to make sure that that experience when they come back downtown is a positive one. And so cleanliness, safe, public activations, making sure that it's the downtown that they remember as a vibrant place that they want it to be. Mm-hmm. If we welcome people back to that sort of downtown, the downtown that they expect, I don't think we'll have any trouble keeping them.
Do you feel in a way that the stop and start that has taken place in this pandemic is kind of cultivating people to not necessarily expect that they're going to be in the downtown in the way that they've always been, that there might be a little bit of a loss of commitment, if you want to call it that, to the downtown?
Sure, it doesn't make it easier. But what we've found is that people are social, right? So people want to be back. People have a craving for a sense of normalcy of what was. I'm someone who went through Hurricane Katrina and lost a home. And there was the same sense of, well, things are going to be completely different now. And what you find is people have a craving for what was, that last sense of normalcy that they had. We're all going through something that we've never gone through before. There's no textbook for how to do this. The stopping and starting is unfortunate. It certainly doesn't make it any easier. But I think if we do the jobs that as placemakers that we've always done, which is to create a vibrant place for people to be, for people to gather, for people to have a good time, for people to work, I think we'll see what we've always seen, which is people will come back to downtowns.
Yeah. One of my last questions for you ought to have probably been the first question, which is, how did you find Vancouver? How did you find each other?
Vancouver found me, and it was one of those things that most things in my life have been serendipitous. I found my way to the downtown development district in New Orleans by accidentally opening an email that I never would have opened in a million years, and one thing led to the next, and I found myself at the downtown development district in New Orleans. I had a voicemail on my phone, and most people in New Orleans know text me or email me. They know how to find me. Voicemail is not the way to necessarily find me. But I had a voicemail that was 2 weeks old from a recruiter looking for this position. And at first I thought it was a scam. It's the middle of the pandemic. Recruiter from Vancouver is calling down in New Orleans. Something must not be right. But I decided to call back, and one thing led to another, and it was a great courtship. I convinced my wife that Vancouver was the place for us. and obviously convince the board. Like I said, really excited to have made this decision. Vancouver already feels like home to us.
So you're going to hold the job for 30 years the way Charles Gauthier did?
Well, that's what I've told Charles. We had a great conversation. It was 29 years for him. And I said, Charles, are you sure you can stick around if you just want to make it to 30? He said no. It's all mine. We planned for a 30-day overlap, and it was really great to be able to spend that time with Charles. But I've told him now I've got to go to 30. That's the plan.
Yeah, you've got to top it. Last issue, which is, what do you think ought to be the ambition of the city now that you're starting to understand it a bit more? You've had an initial impression of it, but can you see it in a different way on the national and the world stage just by being here for a little bit?
Sure. It really is. You think of it as such an amazing world-class city, and it is because of the setting that it's in, because of the amount of value in this place. And I mean that from the economic standpoint, but just sort of the natural value that exists in a place where I can live 2 blocks from the beach and walk towards the mountains to arrive at downtown at my destination. What I think Vancouver needs to figure out if it wants to be able to do is to break through the bureaucracy to move even faster.
Right.
So how do if we want to be a city that hosts destination events, how do we move from talking about it, studying it, debating whether or not we can do it and how much it costs, to deciding we want to do it and then fast in that direction? If we understand that we have a housing crisis, how can we move quickly to create more supply in the pipeline so that we can address that crisis in a meaningful way? My predecessor was quoted as saying, "We don't have a shadowing problem in Vancouver, we have a housing problem." And so how do we move quickly to address sort of new realities when they emerge, even though we've got sort of old historical culture that's built up? So I think we've just got to move faster, and sometimes that means moving faster through bureaucracy or moving faster through sort of being set in ways of the way things are.
Can you effect some of that from the position in terms of the nimbleness that you're describing here with government?
Well, I certainly will try. Part of my experience in the past has been intergovernmental relations, and I think it's informed by my experience after Hurricane Katrina. I owned a business in New Orleans. That's what I thought I would do until I retired. And the business was wiped out by the storm. My home was wiped out by the storm. And I thought, if I'm going to be back in the city, I don't want to just be a business owner. I want to be a part of making the city the best city that I've ever been. I went to work for an organization in New Orleans whose entire purpose was figuring out how all the different diversity in New Orleans, the diverse thought, the diverse people of New Orleans could come together. What could we agree on and accomplish? And we built diverse partnerships to work on public safety, government ethics, zoning, planning. We did that through building really diverse, meaningful partnerships with people who never would have sat across the table from each other prior to the storm. And so I'm hopeful that having all of us gone through the shared experience of a pandemic, it creates a baseline for how do we work together? How do we build partnerships that maybe we never thought to build before to move us forward? And so that's the way that I like to move government. It's through partnership. It's not through leaning and lobbying in sort of the traditional sense. But if I can bring advocates for homeless and addicted people together with developers who want to build more office and retail, because they all see the win of a new office population, creating additional support for retail, those retailers hiring those people that folks in the homeless service and addiction worlds care about. Those are the kinds of new transformative partnerships that I think really move government. And that's something that I think I can help do from the seat.
Last point. I think you say 8 days to drive here.
Yep.
With the family. So, which 8-day excursion are you now going to do on this side of the border?
That's a really great question. I think we haven't had the opportunity to really explore BC yet.
Yeah.
And candidly, we haven't had the opportunity to explore much beyond the downtown peninsula. And there's a lot to explore on the downtown peninsula. But we're really looking forward to just getting out and about in BC and really learning our new home. I've told everyone there's no urgency from us because we plan on being here at least 30 years because I'm a competitive person and I've got top. So we'll be here. This is home.
I don't want to correct you, but you're going to have to learn to pronounce out and about very differently here if you're going to stay.
Oh, it's one of those things that I have learned. Working on it.
Good. Well, there you go. I'll leave you to far more significant learnings, and I want to thank you today for your time, Nolan. It's been a great conversation, a really good starting point for us to talk about your ambitions for the city and your ambitions for your role. And of course, everybody is really behind what the BIA does downtown. It's really been very, very effective, and look forward to even more under your watch. So thanks for your time today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Look forward to talking soon.
Nolan Marshall III is the new head of the Downtown Vancouver BIA. I'm Kirk LaPointe, publisher and editor-in-chief at Business in Vancouver. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again.